Grand Canyon University, an affordable private Christian university, is one of the largest and fastest growing universities in the country, offering more than 270 programs online. In addition to federal grants and aid, GCU's online students received nearly $130 million in institutional scholarships in 2022. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer to see the scholarships you may qualify for.
If you think about it, we're all pretty much self-employed. We're all presidents of our own corporations. You work for yourself. And the biggest mistake we can ever make is to think that we work for someone else. The person who signs our paycheck is actually our biggest client. Our jobs may change, but we're always the same. We are the one constant. I really believe that all of us are entrepreneurial because when you're president of your own career, your own life, your own family, your own finances, your own body, your own health, you are your own personal chief executive officer. You're your own chief financial officer. And once you take responsibility for your life and everything in it, your life can actually change. I read an opinion piece in the New York Times, and that's really what inspired this podcast. It's about another entrepreneur, John Goodenough. At the age of 23, he was told that he was too old to study physics. Now, get this. At the age of 94, he and his University of Texas team are trying to get a patent on a new kind of battery. It's going to radically change electric cars and totally do away with gas-powered vehicles. Oh, and by the way, at the age of 57, he was the co-inventor of the lithium-ion battery. I'm America's Digital Pro, Kim Commando. I'm inspired by successful people because, as they say, success leaves clues. David Friend has been a successful technology entrepreneur his whole life. David's actually one of the inventors of the Moog synthesizer. He did that in his 20s. We'll learn more about that in the podcast. And then he started this little company called Carbonite. I know. Today they employ 1,200 people and they have annual revenues of $250 million. In this podcast, we're going to talk to David about his success. And also, he has a brand new venture. He's calling this one Wasabi. We're going to learn more about that, and you're going to get a ton of advice about business and success.
Brought to you in part by our friends at Dreamstime, the world's largest stock photo and video community. The right image, anywhere, anytime. Download the most relevant and current images and videos today for only 20 cents each or for free. Visit dreamstime.com. That's DREAMSTIME.com today.
Now, of course, to get started, you first have to find your niche, find your passion. You have to create that vision.
I think there are a lot of different roads to the top of the hill, and there are lots of different types of people who become entrepreneurs. My particular style, and I think what I'm good at, is marshaling the forces of a lot of talented people to do something which might be considered difficult by most people. And that really means I have to be able to articulate a vision of where this can go, get people to buy into it, and then create an environment, a work environment in which the talented people who actually do the work can thrive. And, that's what I've done, I think, successfully through my career.
How do you bring all these people together?
Well, you start with an idea for a product or a service. It becomes pretty clear once you start to dig into it what kind of skills are needed in order to bring that idea to life. And in my case, of course, it's all the very complicated technology that goes into something like cloud storage. And, the number of people out there who are expert enough at this kind of thing is pretty small. And, I've accumulated those contacts over the years through, with the help of my business partner, Jeff Flowers, who is kind of the architect of the actual product. So depending on what you're trying to do, you need to bring in the right kind of expertise. And usually you're looking to find people who have really good jobs elsewhere. And, so you need to be able to sell them on the idea that this is really the future and this is a great opportunity and you need to be on board.
Has it ever happened where you targeted a particular person and you really wanted them to be part of your newest venture. And you gave them the best pitch ever. And then the timeline comes and the deadline comes and they say, I'm just not feeling it. Has that ever happened?
Oh, sure. It happens all the time. It's just like, if you're out trying to close a sale, you don't get 100%, you get some percentage. But sometimes people have other things going that are satisfying, or they feel like they've made a commitment to do something else for some period of time, and they just can't back out on those commitments. Sometimes people don't get it. You try your best to explain to them why it's such a big opportunity, and they look at it and they say, you know what, I disagree with you. I think this is not going to work. So yeah, sure, you get some percentage that buy in and some percentage that think you're nuts. My feeling is that if you didn't hit resistance and opposition, there's probably something wrong with your plan, because an opportunity by definition is something that occurs to you but not to everybody. And that's why venture capitalists turn down most of the deals that come in the door, including some that turn out to be, the next Facebook or Instagram, because you can't expect everybody to buy into it. And if they did, the opportunity probably would have been done by somebody else already. So you'd be too late.
What's interesting is that I shared with you an opinion piece that was in the New York Times. And the headline is to be a genius, you have to think like a 94-year-old. And it's about a gentleman by the name of John Goodenough. And in 1946, he was 23 years old. He headed to the University of Chicago, this dream of studying physics. And his professor told him that he was probably too old to succeed in the field there at 23 years old. And it goes on to say that here he is at 94. He is setting the whole industry abuzz because he's got this brand new lithium battery. And he did this before 1980 at the age of 57. And he co-invented the lithium-ion battery that shrank power into this tiny package. Now, with entrepreneurs, we are looking at this millennial generation coming up, right? And Mark Zuckerberg, he said it at an event in Stanford in 2007 that younger people are just smarter. And he was then 22 years old and the chief executive of Facebook. Now, he later went on to say, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have really said that. What do you say about that?
I think there are different things you can do at different times in your life. When I was just starting out my first company just out of college, making synthesizers for rock bands, that was something that I was very well suited to at that time in my life. There was no blueprint to go on. Nobody had ever made anything like these before. And I was part of the generation of people who would use a product like this. So intuitively, I think I really got it.
So you were a rocker. Did you have long hair?
I had long hair and wore clothes that today would be embarrassing. But, but I think, as you know, there's definitely a certain advantage you have in being part of the audience that you're marketing to. So I'm not 16 years old, and I don't sit on my mobile device all day long texting with my friends or doing whatever. And so it just isn't going to come naturally to me to say, okay, I have an idea to how to make this experience a lot better because I'm using it and I can see how I could make it better. I'm not that audience anymore. So don't look to me to create the next Instagram or, Facebook or any of that sort of thing.
Snapchat, boy, where did that come out of?
Right. But, yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure that these are products that are used by and designed by people of a certain age and a certain set of experiences. A lot of very creative people have said, nothing is really new. It's just a matter of taking other things that have been done before and putting them together in novel ways. And I think there's a good deal of truth to that. And so I can identify with someone who's 94 years old and has had a lifetime of experience in chemistry and physics, and the ability to sort of see how they could take a technology that they've already experienced in one area and a technology they've experienced in another area, put them together in a novel way, and come up with a great battery. And in my case, the kind of things I'm doing at Wasabi now, which is storing everybody's data in the cloud, I couldn't have done that when I was 20 because it took 15 years of experience in the storage industry to gain enough knowledge to put the pieces together that are making this product possible. So I'm kind of moving back towards infrastructure because anything with a heavy kind of user interface and designed for, millennials to use is not my strength anymore. But I've seen a lot of different pieces of technology come across my field of vision over the years. And therefore, I have the ability to say, okay, I'm going to take this idea over here, put it together with that idea over here, and make something that's completely new. So I think you do, different things at different times in your career, but you're always building, on the strength of you understanding the person that you're selling to.
How long ago did you start Carbonite?
So Carbonite was started in 2005, and, the idea of online backing up your computer to the cloud, was a completely new idea at that point in time.
So how is Wasabi now different from Carbonite?
So Wasabi is just plain storage, and it's not the kind of thing that you or a typical average person would probably use directly. But probably a lot of your listeners are familiar with Amazon's cloud services.
Sure. Yes.
And, one of the things they offer is storage in the cloud. And if you've ever used products like iCloud on your Mac or Dropbox for storing files, those companies actually store their data in Amazon's cloud. Now, they don't advertise that fact, but, that's where the data actually goes, is to Amazon's, what they call their S3 storage. And so this is what I'd call sort of wholesale storage. You're technically sophisticated enough that you could probably find some little programs that you could put on your PC that would work with Wasabi storage. Mm-hmm. But, it's not really designed for the typical consumer. It's really designed as a place to store large amounts of data. So the kinds of companies that are really interested in Wasabi are like large metropolitan police departments that have put, thousands of body cams out on all the police force. Where are they going to store all that data? There's 260 million surveillance cameras in operation around the world. Where does all that data get stored? Every time Universal Pictures or Disney makes a major new feature film, they create millions of gigabytes of data that needs to be stored somewhere. These movies are all digital today. Every TV show, if you look at just watch a 5-minute music video, and you've got 10 to 12 cameras all operating at 4K, super high resolution, and it takes like an hour of shooting to make 1 minute of finished product. So just a little 5-minute music video creates an enormous amount of data. So the explosion of data that's going on right now is really unprecedented. And as the price of storage for all that data goes down, it only exacerbates the amount of data that's getting generated, because now things are financially practical that weren't practical just a few years ago.
Well, we're talking about massive amounts of data. And so whether it's Universal, genetic research company, as you mentioned, how do you get the data from the business, the movie studio, the research company? How do you move that much data over the internet to get it up to the cloud? Conceptually, it could take a really, really long time.
It could, but unlike, just the average person who has, a relatively slow internet connection coming into their house, most companies today have quite a bit of bandwidth. And in fact, 10 gigabits per second, which used to be considered a really exotic, expensive connection, is now pretty much standard for most businesses. And if you need more, there are companies out there right now that will rent you on a relatively short-term basis 100 gigabits or more. And so, while it used to be a big problem moving a lot of data across the internet, the amount of bandwidth that's out there today is growing rapidly. And the only thing that's fallen faster than the cost of storage is the cost of bandwidth. The cost of bandwidth is about 1/50th today of what it was just 10 years ago.
So how much does it cost to, say, store a movie in the cloud?
There's the interesting thing about Wasabi, because if you were to ask that question before we launched, the answer would have been about 2 cents per gigabyte per month with Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. So if your movie is, say, a terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes, which would be actually kind of consumer level video, that's 1,000 gigabytes times 2 cents. So that would be about $20 a month to store that, or about, $300 a year. Mm-hmm. If your movie is actually a feature film, and it would probably be an order of magnitude more than that. So, you could be talking about $20,000 a month instead of $20 a month to store the data for a feature film. Wasabi is 1/5 of the price of Amazon.
Wow.
Storage. So it's a major disruptive pricing point in the market. And suddenly that $20,000, becomes $4,000, a much more manageable kind of number. And a lot of things that you just couldn't afford to do at 2 cents per gigabyte start to become pretty painless at 0.39 cents per gigabyte, which is what we charge. 0.3. And we're 6 times faster to boot.
Okay, so how did you do that? How did you reduce the cost of storage per gigabyte and increase the transmission time?
There are a lot of people that would like to know that.
Okay.
But we have been in the storage business for 15 years. And all I can tell you is that, when we started Carbonite, there were companies that were already doing commercial backup in the cloud, including some big guys like EMC, HP, and Iron Mountain. And, basically they were all telling their customers, don't worry about this Carbonite company. There's no way they can do what they're doing and still make money. So just relax because they'll be out of business in 2 years. Well, in less than 4 years, we had driven all 3 of those companies out of the consumer backup business. And the reason was just we understand the technology better. And, we get down to very low level controlling how data is written on disks. And, there's a lot of secret sauce in there. But, and it's very complicated work. We certainly couldn't do it if we hadn't had 15 years in this business with a team that's kind of been intact for that length of time.
So did you just wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning one day with this idea?
No, when I was running Carbonite as the CEO, my genius co-founder, Jeff Flowers, had left some time earlier. And he came to me one day and said he had been working on this new storage architecture that, on paper anyway, looked like we would be able to sell storage for 1/5 of the price of Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, somewhere between 6 and 20 times faster. And I said, wow, that is interesting. And, so we decided to, spend 6 months in the lab actually proving it out. And when it became evident this was actually going to work, that's when I, brought in a new CEO and resigned from Carbonite to take advantage of this new opportunity. And so we just launched. The product's finished now. We just launched, and as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of interest.
I bet. I mean, gosh, this is amazing. It is a disruptor, and Amazon's a major force. But it sounds like you do have all the secret sauce.
When we started Carbonite, a petabyte of storage was an unthinkable amount of data. I think at the end of 2006 or 2007, we'd been in business for a year and a half, and we were just coming up on our first 1 petabyte of data. And the equipment to store a petabyte of data took an entire room. Today, we get about 10 petabytes in one 6-foot rack. And a petabyte is just like, wow, that's $46,000 a year. It's not that big a deal. And so, what we were seeing at Carbonite was just this explosion of information. And we were seeing this effect that as the cost of storage went down, the amount of things that people stored went up. I mean, it kind of makes sense. You'd think that was the thing. But so as you project the costs dropping and dropping on storage, the other side of that curve is the amount of stuff that people are going to store is just going to explode. It's like there's never a good time to clean out your attic, right? It's easier just to shut the door and do it some other time.
Everybody can relate to that.
Because the cost of doing it is not worth what you get.
I have one final question for you, David.
Mm-hmm.
What famous bands used your synthesizers?
Oh, man. Well, I personally gave synthesizer lessons to Stevie Wonder, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, Pete Townsend from The Who, and, the list goes on and on. Herbie Hancock, famous jazz musician. We had literally hundreds of major bands who were endorsing our synthesizers back in the 70s. It was a great time to be in the music business. And
this must have been a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun to do when I was in my 20s, but I'd say this would not be something I would want to do today at my age.
Yeah, I could just see you and Margaret rocking out.
Yeah.
Zoe'd be right there. You know that. Zoe'd be right there in the front row.
Zoe would definitely be there.
All right.
And it wasn't until Zoe and Lily sort of one day discovered this trove of photos of me with all these, with the Beatles and all these people, that they were about 12 or 13 at the time. Suddenly, my stock went up at home, and suddenly Dad was cool.
It's like, okay, this is my dad. Check it out.
Right.
If you had to give an entrepreneur like one piece of advice, what would that be?
Probably the most important thing is, since you're never going to be successful unless you get other people on your team, is don't be a jerk. There are a lot of people out there who read about entrepreneurs who are notoriously difficult people. And so they think, oh, wow, to be successful, I need to be a real hard-ass jerk. And I can tell you, I know some great people who have been fantastically successful by being thoughtful and kind and paying attention to people as human beings. And my own view is if you can think about your employees and sort of what you need them to do and what they want to get out of it themselves, is you've got to be somebody who they want to work for. And, nobody needs a job enough to put up with a boss who is abusive and a jerk. And so, if that's the way you are, I think you should expect to suffer some consequences from that.
A special thank you to David Friend for coming on this podcast and sharing with us his many achievements. He's not only a leading-edge entrepreneur in technology and cloud storage, David is just a great guy. David Friend was first just a client to me, but over the years he turned into a friend. And as it turns out, just when he was telling about his new company, Wasabi, well, here at the Kim Komando Show studios, we were looking for the exact solution that he was putting on the market. You see, we have tons and tons of video files. We need to store them somewhere. And Amazon got to be pretty pricey. So we were looking for an alternative. And I want to share with you this email that I got from David just a few days ago. Dear Kim, while a number of people put their credit cards in to buy Wasabi on May 22nd, I hereby declare that the Kim Komando Show was the very first Wasabi paying customer. Jim is going to send you a $1 bill in a little case. Would you do me the great honor of signing the dollar bill and returning it to me so that we can proudly display it in the office? Thanks. History is made. So if you ever get to the Wasabi offices in Boston, Massachusetts, be sure to check out the dollar bill on the wall. Oh, just one more thing. David, if you do invent another keyboard, I just want to let you know, as a singer, I am totally available. Thanks for listening to this Komando On Demand podcast. If you like what you hear, be sure to share this information with your family members and friends. My podcasts are available on iTunes and in the Google Play Store, but the best way to listen is to get them in the free Komando.com app. Just search for Komando in iTunes or Google Play. Oh, and by the way, would you like to watch my show live or maybe on demand on your schedule? You can if you're a Kim's Club member. Learn more at club.komando.com. And also, as a Kim's Club member, you can even come by and be my guest in the studio next time you're in Phoenix. And to listen to my show wherever you may be all across America, go to komando.com/radio.
Your success depends on building meaningful relationships with current and prospective customers. ACT can help. ACT is a powerful CRM solution that saves time, increases productivity, and so much more. Sign up for a free 14-day trial at act.com. Grow your business today by visiting act.com.